All right, we're going to get started tonight. There are several items on the agenda. City Secretary, do we have a quorum present?
Yes, sir, we do.
All right, moving on to Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance by Stephanie Otto, Commander of the American Legion Post. All right, and moving on to presentations. Presentation of the Police Department Employee of the 2025 Second Quarter Award by Stephanie Otto, Commander of the American Legion Post. All right, we're going to move towards the City of Jersey Village Crime Control Prevention District and receive the adopted fiscal year 2025 to 2026 budget that was just approved. City Secretary.
Thank you, Mayor. The alternative budget procedures adopted by the Board of Directors of the Jersey Village Crime Control and Prevention District required that the budget be submitted to Jersey Village City Council 10 days after the budget is within 10 days after the budget is adopted by the board. The budget is submitted to City Council no later than the 10th day prior to the first month of each fiscal year of the district. The City Council shall hold a public hearing on the budget adopted by the board for the upcoming fiscal year. So we have the budget that was approved by CCPD earlier this evening, and we just need to receive it before the public hearing. I don't believe any motion is necessary. We're just receiving it.
Yeah, I believe we can just receive it. Okay. Let's show that received and move on to conduct the public hearing. I now call to order this public hearing of the Jersey Village Crime Control Prevention District's budget for the fiscal year 2025-2026. Everyone desiring to speak at this hearing should complete a public hearing comment card and present it to the city secretary. The purpose of today's hearing is to give all interested parties the right to appear and be heard concerning the Jersey Village Crime Control and Prevention District's adopted budget for the fiscal year 2025 to 2026. Now I'd like to request Chief of Police Danny Keel to summarize this subject for the public hearing.
Mayor and Council, in front of you is the 2025-2026 fiscal budget year for the CCPD. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Does anyone like to speak at this public hearing for the CCPD budget? There being no one desiring to speak, I now close this public hearing on the Jersey Village Crime Control and Prevention District adopted budget for the fiscal year 2025 to 2026 and move on to item D3, consider ordinance 2025-19, adopting the Crime Control Prevention District for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2025 and ending September 30th, 2026. Now, if anyone has questions for Chief Keel, if not, a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2025-19.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Moving on to item E1, receive the adopted fiscal year 2025-2026 budget from the Jersey Village Fire Control, Prevention, and Emergency Medical Service District. Courtney Rutherford, City Secretary.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, the alternative budget procedures require that the board submit their budget to City Council 10 days after the budget is adopted or deemed adopted by the board. They have submitted they approved their budget prior to this meeting and are submitting it to Council to receive.
And we've received that budget, and now we're moving on to item E2 to conduct a public hearing on the Jersey Village Fire Control Prevention Emergency Medical Service District adopted budget for fiscal year 2025 to 2026. That one is me, and I now call to order this public hearing for the Jersey Village Fire Control Prevention and Emergency Medical Service District budget for fiscal year 2025 to 2026. Everyone desiring to speak at this hearing should complete a public hearing comment card and present it to the City Secretary. The purpose of today's hearing is to give all interested parties the right to appear and be heard concerning the Jersey Village Fire Control and Prevention and Emergency Medical Services District adopted budget for fiscal year 2025 to 2026. Now I'd like to request that Assistant Chief Daly summarize the subject of this public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you in your packet, you'll find the proposed 2025-2026 Fire Control Prevention Emergency Medical Services District budget. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Would anyone like to speak in regards to the public hearing for the Fire Control Prevention and Emergency Medical Service District? There being no one desiring to speak, I now close this public hearing on the Jersey Village Fire Control Prevention and Emergency Medical Services District adopted for the fiscal year 2025-2026. Moving on to item E3, consider ordinance 2025-20, adopting the Jersey Village Fire Control Prevention and Emergency Medical Service District budget for fiscal year October 1, 2025 and ending September 30th, 2026. Does anyone have any questions for Assistant Chief Daly? None?
This isn't a question for him, but should it be noted that the $130,000 line item that was considered in the prior meeting should be changed on this budget as well?
Yes, it was published prior to the meeting. The Fire Control Prevention and Emergency Medical Service District made a change to the budget about 35 minutes ago and removed the radios from the line item. Those are going to be purchased out of the current year's budget.
Essentially, the budget that's before the council right now is the budget with the amendment.
Has already been amended. Motion to approve ordinance 2025-20.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of approving? Motion passes. Moving to the fiscal year 2025 to 2026 municipal budget items, conduct a public hearing on the City of Jersey Village municipal budget for fiscal year 2025 to 2026. I now call to order this public hearing on the City of Jersey Village proposed municipal budget for fiscal year 2025 to 2026. Everyone desiring to speak at this hearing should complete a public hearing comment card and present it to the City Secretary. The purpose of today's hearing is to give all interested parties the right to appear and be heard concerning the City of Jersey Village proposed municipal budget for fiscal year 2025 to 2026. Is anyone here to speak on the budget? Jim Fields.
Can I clarify about the communications position and the outsourced communications? And maybe Chief Daly and Chief Keel can respond to that. Earlier this year, council had allowed a spinoff of our fire department communications, and the communications department fell under the direction of the police department. I'll let you two explain what happened and the benefits and effects of that, please.
Yeah, we currently still have a public safety communications division. It's comprised of 8 full-time dispatchers and 1 dispatch supervisor is what encompasses that division within the department. At the time, council had approved an additional personnel in there as a dispatcher to cover peak hours, i.e. meaning I think it was like an evening shift, kind of a swing shift during the peak hours when the call responses and the call times were at higher volumes. And so Chief Daly, Assistant Chief Daly, and Chief Bitts, they met with several outsourced fire and EMS dispatch centers around the Harris County area that handle strictly fire and EMS dispatching. They found that it was going to save the city some financially to move that revenue for that peak person minus their benefits and consult just the fire and EMS services. And so essentially you're still going to call 911. You're going to get our dispatch center. If the dispatcher derives that fire and EMS is needed on that call, they transfer it to that that call center, and we found that we've actually seen a lot better response time from our fire and EMS calls, and getting that apparatus or that personnel to the scene faster. In Jersey Village, it's unique. We deal with a lot of police-related dispatching, i.e., it's a different skill set, and the principles that go in coincide with a lot of the EMD and fire and EMS calls. It really does encompass a lot of training, and that training takes time. And when you're not taking those calls on a daily basis at the same rate that you're taking the PD type calls and the disciplines that are associated with police dispatching, we found that our dispatchers were a little bit behind in those services, and this has helped out. And so it's regulated it, and all it was the position. We took the funding from that position and utilized that to outsource just that portion of it from a contractual state.
Thank you.
Yeah, we also we reduced the cost. It was cheaper to do that than hiring the peak time dispatcher. We were also able to reduce the cost of the maintenance costs associated with some of the Tyler Technology CAD software that we use.
And the response time, Chief Keel mentioned that it had been reduced. How much response time are we saving?
Yes, sir. We were averaging about 4 minutes from the time a dispatcher with the city was receiving a 911 call to getting a unit en route, was averaging around 4 minutes, and we're now averaging under 1 minute.
And we also reduced some liabilities there, too, by the outsourcing because of the protocols, the Pro-QA protocols that go inside with giving someone instructions over the phone how to do CPR, do medical procedures. We found that we reduced our liabilities in that realm also, having this outsource where that's all that they do. 110% of the time is all they do is fire and EMS dispatching.
Anyone else like to speak
Mayor,
in the public?
can I make a few more statements
Go
on
ahead.
that? There's no property taxes that go to the golf course, so property taxes do not impact golf course operations, and golf course operations do not impact property taxes. The administration department does not have an administrative assistant or an administrative secretary. We haven't since 2017. The Parks Department has had a administrative assistant for 15 to 20 years, I would say. They do a lot of things, for more than just the parks, but they also help out some of the administrative department as well. So just want to clarify some of those positions. In the budget book, we do talk about all the positions that are in the budget. So encourage the residents to go out there, read the budget book, even the high-level stuff, seeing what's all in each department there.
Always good for residents to go read and fact check and ask council and staff for clarifications when they hear things. Would anyone else like to speak in regards to this public hearing on the municipal budget? There being no one else desiring to speak, I now close this public hearing on the City of Jersey Village proposed municipal budget for fiscal year 2025 to 2026. We're going to move to F2, consider Resolution 2025-43, electing to postpone the final budget vote on the 2025 to 2026 municipal budget until August 18th. City Manager Austin Blease.
Mayor and councilors, by state law, we have to have a budget hearing, and we have to take action on the budget after the hearing. This action we're taking tonight is just to postpone it. We are waiting for some better numbers from the appraisal district before we can set our tax rate, which always impacts the last piece of the budget. But we do it this way so that council has all of the opportunity to make their own decisions as to the timing of the budget, and if they would want to go for a tax rate election in November, they would have that opportunity. That's why we do this sooner than later.
This will also give citizens extra time to review the budget that was released on July 3rd and contact their representatives if they have any questions or feedback.
Any other discussion or a motion to approve Resolution 43?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-43, postponing the final budget vote until August 18th of 2025.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Moving on to item F3, consider resolution 2025-44, setting the maximum proposed ad valorem tax rate and setting the date for the public hearing on the tax increase and setting the date the City Council will adopt the fiscal year 2025-2026 ad valorem tax rate. City Manager Austin Blease.
Mayor and councilors, part of the legislative process that changed back in 2019, we have to hold these hearings and publish a notice of what the tax rate would not exceed. The notice that we're proposing here tonight will not exceed a tax rate of 0.89. We don't believe that will happen. If we had issued the certificates of obligation and if those had been sold today, that tax rate might have been that. But for what we are today, this will not be close to, the tax rate proposed won't be close to that. But we don't have firm numbers until about another week or so. But this just says this is the maximum. We aren't going to go above this. The actual tax rate will be set in August.
I just wanted to ask real quick, because we have to have this explained repeatedly every year, that the, do you mind explaining, you, Austin, or Jennifer, about what the ad valorem, like what that means, the tax rate? That does not mean we are setting everyone's tax rate to the 0.89 tonight. That is not what this is. But I just want to make sure we get some clarification so that we're not listening to false information repeatedly.
Correct. So this is just the maximum that we could set it to. This is not setting the tax rate. This is not doing anything like that. In the August meeting, we'll come back with a recommended tax rate. If council wants to give any recommendations as to what they want to see with the tax rate, they can certainly do that as well. But this tax rate here means we will not exceed this amount. It is not setting the tax rate. That won't be done until August 18th. At the August 18th meeting, that is the last date that council could choose to put a tax rate on the ballot in November, which is why we always do it the timing that we do it. If council doesn't choose to put a tax rate on the ballot, council technically doesn't have to set a tax rate in August. They could wait a few more weeks. But this gives council the most flexibility possible to have the most options that they can. But this is not setting the tax rate.
So by law, we have to set a max tax rate.
Correct.
This tax rate was calculated considering the certificates of obligation, correct?
Correct.
Has it been recalculated with taking out the certificates of obligation?
We have not. We've done that kind of informally, but we haven't done that because the budget was published with that information in there. So that is why we are not modifying that at this point in time.
Okay. But the recalculation by taking out the certificates of obligation would necessarily reduce the maximum rate, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Any other questions or a motion to approve?
One last question. This does consider the bonds that we're going to discuss later on this meeting that have been issued?
Correct.
Okay. Yes, it does.
Okay. I have a motion that somebody will have to make, but it has to be this motion, is to approve resolution number 2025-44, setting the maximum proposed ad valorem tax rate, setting the date for the public hearing on the tax increase, and setting the date that the City Council will adopt the fiscal year 2025-2026 ad valorem tax rate.
I will make that motion as stated.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Now that we have a motion and a second, I will now call upon each council member by name to take a record vote. Once your name is called, answer aye to signify your approval of the motion or nay to signify your disapproval. Councilmember Wasson, state your vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Hughes, state your vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Rossi, state your vote.
Aye.
Councilmember McCray, state your vote.
Aye.
Let the record reflect that Councilmember Mitchum is absent and did not vote. Motion carried. And now we will move on to the next item, citizen comments. Jim Fields. Hey, Jim, can you move the mic closer? Yeah.
Do y'all hear it? Okay. Like
Yeah, the mic, he just tapped on the mic's dead. Hold on for just a second, Jim.
It's got power. All right.
There we go.
Okay,
All
start the
right,
clock again.
go ahead, Jim.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Allow me to comment again. For it's Jim Fields, 16413 St. Helier. Kudos is what I want to start off with. The light post on Castle Bridge was fixed. Thank you. It took about 6 months, but the wheels of government do turn. Sidewalks completed at the corner of Rio Grande and Village Drive. Thank you. That was a safety hazard because you had to walk on the street. And thank you again for that. The street sweeper operator was very helpful when I moved the trash can. I ran out there, moved the trash can real quick, and he passed me by, and he backed up and swept my house. So, city manager, give him kudos. I don't know who he was because I couldn't see because the windows were tinted. Special thanks to City Council member Hughes for hosting a town hall meeting. This was a first for City Council member since I can remember. And I recommend that for all City Council members to participate because that's the best way to get the information across. Also, kudos to City Secretary Rutherford. I'm her favorite pest. She's always very kind to me and very patient with me and always helps me with whatever I need. Also, kudos to Chief Police Keel. He's exceptional. He actually went outside to help me take care of the issue in the city. He really cares. Recommendations. I do believe, Mayor, change the rules permitting the citizens to ask questions requiring answers. This will encourage more citizen participation, which we desperately need. Include that and also in the workshops. Videotape the budget workshops and special sessions. I think that's very, 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 very important. One other thing, this has to do with commercial. I came up with the idea of hooking up a driveway, all the driveways on the west side of Jones Road, get all the vendors together. That would help everybody. Then go up and down, and you wouldn't have these dead ends, and I think the business would prosper. Okay, action required. The flower bed at West and 290 has been broken for almost 8 months. I don't think it's good for a city. The street issue on Castle Bridge, Park and Ride and Sam's, it's collapsing over 6 months. Repair a pothole on Castle Bridge behind Lone Star Chevrolet. They tried to patch it, but it's collapsing. Replace 2 missing signs on Castle Bridge, one in front of the bridge and the other one's next to that convenience store, just 4 west. Concerns, code enforcement. On 16225 St. Helier is a commercial company, Energized Engines, operating with their logo EE on the fence. On the 4th of July, they had their front loader and forklift in the front yard. This only lowers the property values of our homes and it's less income in our city. If not shut down, anyone can open a similar commercial business like a tire shop, and small engine repair, muffler shop in a residential zoned area. Please take care of that. There is a car on Jersey Drive without a valid inspection sticker, and it's been sitting there for, I think almost 6 or 8 months. Farmers Market. That was an interesting exchange with the city manager and the mayor. I asked him, can you please email the guy that's managing it to find how much the spots were? What I get from city manager? You do it. So I'm asking, actually I asked an employee. Then finally, the city manager kicks in, tells me I need to do it. I go, and he asked me why. I said, no, just do it. And the reason was to find how much the spots were. That was it. And he still refused. And then the mayor refused. That's not being a good public servant. It's $50 a spot. And we have a guy that's over this getting paid $80K a year. I'm sure he has time. I'll do it for free. We should have those things down to $5 to $10, and of course they pay sales taxes. I've already talked about the budget. Street repair. We got a problem with street repair. You need to get a civil engineer out there. I watched them put the cement down there, and also over here, they're putting sand, repeat sand underneath the concrete. You do not put sand underneath the street concrete. You put crushed concrete down there. And so this street will not last. So please take care of that. Okay, division and community. Mary, you put a lawyer saying division and community. Simon Hughes is an excellent way on how you establish trust. You have a town hall meeting. You throw rocks, stones, shoot arrows at him. He'll answer them. And also telling the truth. The pool was a complete abomination. Lies were told repeatedly. So stop that. Build the trust back, and we'll move with you.
That's 5, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Andy Hunziker.
Apologize for coming in late. What I wanted to talk about, first I understand they want to move everybody from Taylor Street over here to the new complex. Are we aware there isn't anything we could probably do with the Taylor Street since we've got cars and everything else buried in it? It's kind of like the land next to the fire station here. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. Anyway, what I really came to talk about is the organization chart of Jersey Village. And to make my point before I get to it, if the mayor and I decided that we would like to build a swimming pool, and I had the plans and I had the money, and he and I agreed that this is where we're going to build it, we couldn't build it without the city managers. And I don't mean to say anything negative about the city manager. I think he's a great guy. I think he's done great things. I think he's done great for his economy and his family, etc. And that's the city council's fault, not his. I think he's doing a great job. But the mayor and I couldn't do it ourselves. We would have to get the approval of the city manager to put in a swimming pool or an airport or whatever in the heck we wanted to do. So that's why I brought this organization chart down that's in our website. And it shows a city manager down here below the city council. The city manager is actually above the city council. If anybody with the police department, fire department, or public works or whatever wants to make a whistleblower complaint, it has to go to the city manager. It can't go to the mayor. And so therefore, I would like for you to redo your organization chart, put city manager and his assistant up here at the top, and then over here where the mayor is, have a line that comes out for the city secretary. Now, it was real interesting on how we did the amendment, or whatever you want to call it, where the city secretary does not answer to the city manager. But in reality, since the city manager is over everything and everybody, she's still under the city manager. If you do the chart the way it works. And that's all I want to say. I think it should be redone. Thank you, sir. Thank you, council. And thank you, city manager.
Thank you, Andy. So, to clarify a little bit, the city charter specifically dictates who reports to who, and the city charter very clearly places the citizens over the city council over the city manager, over the city secretary. They are peers who report to council, and all of the city departments report to the city manager, except for the municipal prosecutors and judge and the city attorney. Happy to meet with you and chat a little bit more about how that is and your experience when you were here and how the city charter is written today. After that, I have Kimberly Anal.
My name is Kimberly Anal, and I live at 15601 Singapore Lane. As my 46th installment, Jersey Village is a municipal incorporated city in the county of Harris and the state of Texas. There is much workforce oversight from these three tax-funded governmental entities. Oversight by the tax-paying citizens is also important, expected, and welcomed. Unfortunately, for some citizens, that oversight does not include implicit or explicit bullying, abusive or threatening language to harass, whether in person, on telephone calls, or in writing. There are invalid thought processes such as, I'm a taxpayer, you work for me, as taxpayers do not pay civil servant salaries since the government entity hires and pays the employees. This type of rhetoric can stem from someone such as citizens wanting to be in a position of power over someone else, such as governmental employees. Everyone pays taxes, even employees that benefit from those taxes like shopping, eating, and especially when they live in the municipality. Just because a taxpayer is one does not mean that they can treat governmental employees or volunteers however they please. The Texas Public Information Act outlines the procedures of requesting information, which the governmental entity has direct access to, but the requested office should not be expected to provide information they do not have access or control over, such as pertaining to any private businesses. Also are complaints about how laws are enforced as issued by the Texas legislature and local ordinances, such as directional parking on a two-way street. Transportation Code 545.303A, an operator who stops or parks on a two-way roadway shall do so with the right-hand wheels of the vehicle parallel to and within 18 inches of the right-hand curb or edge of the roadway. In other words, your tires should be no more than 18 inches away from the curb, and your vehicle headlights should be facing the same direction as general traffic. Interacting respectfully with governmental employees such as emergency response professionals regarding parking ordinances, violations apply to everyone and does not exclude the super entitled rules don't apply to me bully. In today's world, the fact that people do not want to think, they want to just do, or just want to move through things without stopping to think about an issue. They surrender thinking or thinking deeply about anything that doesn't have a simple fix. But as someone observed, that doesn't grant them the right to commit crimes or behave like a jerk. To finish my June's comments, the new city campus was one of Clark Henry's very first projects, building a church for his friends and residents of this new Jersey village. Community members physically helped to get the workings begun with professional involvement, and additional buildings increased over time. I truly believe that Clark Henry would so enjoy seeing the residents and visitors of his prior F&M Jersey ranch gathering together for municipal needs, court proceedings, city council meetings, various departments in one spot, and neighbors learning how to sew materials or paint rocks, while teenagers can play basketball in his safely supervised old church buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes citizen comments. Moving on to item H, city manager's report.
Mayor and councilors, the report is before you. Happy to answer any questions you might have. The legislature is back in session for a special session, so we are closely monitoring. There are several bills that would impact municipalities and how we can operate, so we're closely watching those as well. There's several out there that would change how cities can issue debt or raise taxes or limit our spending overall. I'm sure there's going to be more bills filed over the next few days, but the governor has made several comments over the last 6-ish weeks about how he feels the state legislature needs to do more to cap local government spending, which would definitely change how we budget here. So we're watching for those types of bills.
Austin, one of those, several of the bills are about, for lack of a better term, taxpayer lobbying. I know we're required to have a line item that says we budget $1 every year towards that. We also are members of several different associations, City Managers Association, I believe there's Financial Association, City Secretaries Association. Amongst that, we talked about this 10 days ago in the budget meeting. Also, TML. We pay dues to TML. Off the top of your head, roughly, can you tell me what those dues to Texas Municipal League are?
I would say somewhere around 7,000 or 8,000. I don't know for sure, but something around there. We can get an exact number if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
Are you asking as far as what TML could do for the city as far as?
Well, I think we can go through a litany of the benefits they do for the city, and yes, they do have a leg that does lobby people. My argument towards their lobbying is it would probably cost each one of us time off that the city would not reimburse unless we changed the law, and I don't even know if that would be legal. And I'm serious. And $500 probably between transportation, mileage, per diem, even hotel stay, for us to go up and speak to our legislatures for a day or two and various committees. So I think if you add that up over the course of time, the portion of our dues, maybe $20 or whatever, that go towards TML and their impacts on our behalf are great for the city of Jersey Village and 1,000 other cities our size in the state of Texas. And that's my argument against any ban on as they're written now, taxpayer lobbying. Just because it's cheaper for our taxpayers to lobby or to have TML do things on our behalf.
And I will say that, TML does a lot for us. They give us updates on all of the bills after they get passed and signed into law, make sure we're on top of things on how we know on staying up to date with what's changed in the legislature, budget calendars. If we have legal questions, we can call them and ask for some advice. We don't have to call Olson and Olson. Saves a few bucks that way too. But I would say that probably the vast majority, the biggest benefit we get from TML is not even lobbying; it's all the other things. So if you want to try and percentage it, 10 to 15% maybe, but everything else that we get is way more valuable to us as a city than that.
So for the cost of that, we could send one of us up there and one of us and back, and the other one up there, and leave them in Austin, which I don't know if anybody would like. But
well, this might be a question for you. Is there a bill being introduced during special session on eliminating property tax altogether?
I haven't seen the special session bills, but I can take a look and go back to you. I feel like I would have heard about that. But
there's one that was proposed to do that. I think it was not effective for like 2030 or 2032 or something like that. I don't remember the exact date, but it would study how that revenue would be made up in other ways. There's also a bill in there to eliminate sales tax and do a value-added tax. There's a lot of different things out there right now. Who knows what's going to come out, but state income tax is not one of them. But we're watching all of it, and we'll see what gets traction, and we'll certainly report to council if there's things that do gain traction on that topic.
Would TML be able to answer what is the end game there, if there is consideration to and the collection of property tax? What is the end game? Because we use property taxes to fund our cities.
And it sounds like it's essentially they're funding similar to what they do when they fund sunset provisions. They're funding a study to look into an issue. I'd have to take a look at the bill, but I work with TML pretty regularly on legislative stuff, and they always have they definitely always have scoop I don't have, so I could reach out.
So yeah, it would have prohibit a political subdivision from imposing a property tax on or after January 1st of 2031, provided that the state takes full responsibility for the guarantee of the bonds and issued school debt before that, and it's secured by revenue from property taxes. So that's just the brief summary, but there is a bill out there that would abolish property tax January 1, 2031. We'll see if it gets any traction.
Moving on to the city manager's report. Austin, you're going to be better at talking about it than I am, but I noticed there's quite a few improvements with the golf course. One of those this year, there are well over 30,000 rounds, I believe, and I think they just got a tournament of substantial tournament.
Yeah, their tournament rounds are definitely way up, and their overall rounds are up as well. best year we've had when it comes to income from revenue standpoint. Golf course is doing great, fully self-supporting all of their operations. Property taxes do not go to the golf course, so they're doing great, and we're reinvesting the money into that golf course to make sure we're keeping up with what we need to make sure we've got a golf course that's going to last us for a while.
Just out of curiosity, and if this isn't something I can ask, I'm sure you'll let me know over here. So on paper, the golf course is doing well. All of our data shows that the golf course is doing well. Yet I keep hearing repeatedly from some people that the golf course is not doing well. So why, does anybody here have a suggestion as to why that is?
Historically, it's always been the depreciation that we have to book on the books, depreciating the land asset, which is slightly odd that you're decreasing the value of land. But that's an auditor's number, and Jennifer might be able to speak more to depreciation than I could. But that's one number that's cited when people will say that the golf course is not making money.
Does that show up in the fund balance then?
That does. Because the golf course is operated as an enterprise fund, all of the depreciation of the assets and depreciation expense gets recorded in the fund, whereas it's similar to the utility fund. The utility fund is the same way. All of the other governmental assets they're depreciated in a government-wide GASB fund that no one ever sees because it's only for the accounting entries and it only gets reported in the government-wide statements. However, enterprise funds are run more like a business. And on a cash basis, year to date, just looking at through June, the total income for the golf course has already exceeded the total income for the entire year of last fiscal year at $2.518 million compared to $2.476 million. And so we still have 3 months to go.
Yeah, I was going to say that's with 3 months to go.
Yeah.
And in preparation of the budget, the 6 years prior to this that I've been here, and I think the 7th, we experienced the same. Generally, the city budgets very fiscally conservatively, which means revenues are very conservative, meaning low as you think the lowest end of the scale, and expenses are generally the higher end of what we think we'd get. And that's why usually when someone brings an item to council for approval, it's generally under that forecasted budget, et cetera, et cetera. So would that explain the $20,000 profit anticipated for the golf course next fiscal year?
Right, yes. I think, honestly, we're on pace to probably hit that $3 million this year, 2.9 for sure, but we might hit $3 million. Next year, it's the same thing. We expect to see those numbers continue to grow. But you're exactly right. That's why we've only budgeted that $20,000-ish surplus for next year.
Thank you.
All right, unless anybody has a pressing question on the city manager report, we'll move to the consent agenda. A motion or anyone want to pull something off the consent agenda?
Before I pull, I'm not going to pull them off. I thought about it, but there's two items that explain expenses for the fire control district and the crime control district. Those were explained at 6 p.m. Effectively, they're moving things from the next fiscal year into this fiscal year, and there's plenty of fund balance to take care of that. So with that, unless there's other comments, I will move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor? Motion passes. Moving on to the regular agenda. Item J1, consider ordinance 2025-23 authorizing and ordering the issuance of the City of Jersey Village, Texas General Obligation Bonds, Series 2025, prescribing the terms and form thereof, making other provisions regarding such bonds, including the use of proceeds thereof and matters incident to thereto. And this is going to be the bonds that we approved and have already been voted on by voters, not related to anything now. Finance Director Jennifer Brown.
Thank you. Yes, that is correct. So this is the remaining authorization from the 2023 election from November of 2023. There was $8,155,000 in authorization left. So we went out to the market and a negotiated sale this morning. At your desk is a packet, and I'm going to turn it over to John Roebuck with BOK Financial and let him walk you through that. But we had a pretty good result.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. Mayor, council members, Mr. Blees, before you to have a presentation with the results of the sale this morning. We did go in the market this morning and sold the last of our authorizations from 2023. We generated proceeds of $8,155,000 for the city based on the two propositions that were passed by voters. If you'll turn to the first page, this is the Bond Buyer Index. It's a weekly index of municipal bonds across the country. We did sell general obligation tax ad valorem backed debt, which is represented by Blue Line. We have had a volatile market, as I explained a couple months ago when I was here before we got to go ahead and move for this support of this sale. It's still volatile. Tariffs still a big talk. It's moving the market. You also have, obviously, the global conflicts. But you'll see there on the right side, the current bond buyer index is a 5.3% for general obligation bonds. The good news is we got rated by S&P with a AA+, which is one notch below AAA. So investors are very pleased to find your bonds in the market, and we're very eager to buy them. As a result, if you'll turn to page 2, this is the final sources and uses of funds. We did sell $8,105,000 in bonds. Investors were willing to pay us a premium of $191,000, and then we have less expensive of $141,000. Generated a total proceeds of $8,155,000 for the city. The all-cost interest rate was a 4.613%. What I presented to you guys back, I guess it was 3 months ago or 2 months ago, was a 4.75, so we came in below what we projected. And then the debt service was structured on the next page, page 3 of the presentation. The current debt service requirements there on the far left column, plus the principal, interest, and total debt service for 2025 bond issues there in the middle columns, and then less the debt to be paid for the water and sewer system. And that includes portions of the 2024 bond issue and also portions of this bond issue for the resulting ad valorem tax-backed debt there on the far right. And again, we were able to get a lower rate, which also reduced the total debt service requirements by almost $1 million on the total debt for the city compared to what we showed you a couple months ago. Then the last page is the schedule of events. We've had everything on here except for the last 2 dates. We're here tonight to ask you to approve the ordinance authorizing the issuance of the bonds. And if you do so, then we will close on the 21st of August, at which point you'll receive your funds. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have on the financing. Marcus Dietz, your bond counsel's here. He's the one who drafted the ordinance we're asking you to approve tonight. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions you have on the ordinance.
I just had a quick question. Just looking at your graph here, I'm curious, if we had issued all of the bonds originally instead of piecemealing the way we did, would we have saved money in our interest rate?
Probably potentially yes, but then we had to catch up with the value. So it's all paid by property taxes. So by front loading it all at one time, you also potentially raise your tax rate because of that. So we sold enough to keep the tax rate manageable the first sale. Plus we have spend down requirements too. So we'll get into a whole nother topic.
It's really hard to time because you can never predict the future, and at some point you got to pull the trigger. You mentioned that we were rated AA+, and you might not have been in these conversations, but I think you were, and I know Jennifer was. There's been lots of discussion that our bond rating could go down if we were to do any future bonds. But I know that was discussed recently and taken into effect. Can either of you speak on that?
Your rating is very solid. You have great fund balances, you have great management. There's a lot of different things that go into rating, not just the amount of debt you issue. Plus, your tax rate's very low. So, as a result, yeah, you probably could issue.
Can you say that again?
Comparatively speaking, for the size of the city, your tax rate's relatively low. Yes, sir. So, a lot of factors go into that rating. Obviously, management of the funds, fund balance, staff, management, your policies, those are all come into play when they look at the rating. You could probably issue 10 times what we issue today and not have an increase or impact in your rating.
And I would like to add that they did evaluate our bond rating as with the understanding that we were planning to sell the other two issues because we had not received a petition at that point. So they assigned the rating as if we were issuing the entire amount.
In fact, the rating report does include the issuance of those two COs, or contemplates the issuance of the two COs.
I have a question about the, originally when we talked about this, we talked about the 8.155, and yet the presentation here shows 8.105. Can you explain what that difference is?
The difference is the premium. So when we sell bonds in the market, we're sold with a coupon and a yield, and that difference in coupon and yield generates premium or discount. So if you have a 5% coupon with a lower yield, you generate premium. So investors are willing to pay more for a bond to have the 5% coupon with a lower yield. And vice versa, on the back end of the yield curve, we have lower coupons with a higher yield, and so basically they're getting a discount. So they're paying less than, for a $1,000 bond, they're paying less than $1,000 for that bond. And so that premium generated, it's basically offset the amount of bonds we have to issue to generate the same amount of proceeds.
Okay, so the proceeds are still the 8.155. It's just the face value of the bonds depending on the yield and the timing.
Correct, yes, sir.
And then I've got another question. As bond counsel, were y'all involved in drafting the lengthy ordinance that's attached? Is that correct?
Yeah, I drafted that. That's correct. My firm.
So my question is when we talked about this, my understanding was that it would be 6.155 for water and sewer, and remaining $2 million for the roads and bridges. And yet, when I look at the Article 1, Section 1.1 and B, and then CDE, there's a discrepancy there. It shows 2.97 for Proposition B and 5.185 for Proposition C. Can you explain what happened there?
So when we sold the 2024 bond issue, we sold them based on different authorizations, the A and the B propositions. And we came back later and realized through the document y'all approved, although the debt service is still the same that we issued, because we issued one issue for both propositions, we had to adjust them. And so basically, this is to finish out and clean up those adjustments and those propositions. So we're still selling, like the ordinance says, the $2 million for the general obligation projects, and I guess it's the $6,155,000 for the water sewer. It's just the allocation was done incorrectly after the last sale.
So my question really goes to the way this ordinance is written, the way it shows that the bonds were drawn down before what was available. Despite that snafu, if you will, that doesn't limit the application or the use of the proceeds from the bonds, $2 million to road and 6.155 to water and sewer?
No, it's supposed to work out the way it's supposed to work out. We just had snafu after the 2024 bond issue. We fixed it, and this is what's left in the authorization. Although that's different than what the write-up is. When it's all said and done, the right amount of money for each proposition is going to be spent for the projects that were approved by voters. And if you want me to get into more to it, the Attorney General approved the last issue. If we had to go back and do it, it would cause an issue. So we just kept it the way it was and internally fixed it.
So we've assigned the debt service accordingly going forward for the previous issue. And then as we budget and layer in this level of debt service, it's all being allocated correctly in the budget. The only difference was the way the propositions were drawn down.
You're saying that with respect to the debt service, the amount of the bond proceeds from this issue that get allocated to the water and sewer, the utility fund, get paid out of that fund will be correct?
Yes. So we discovered that the projects that were budgeted didn't match with the way the propositions were drawn down on paper. But it didn't change the way the funds were allocated, only changed how we allocated the debt service, and we have corrected that between the two funds.
Going back to Councilmember Hughes' first question, just an analogy as we look forward for planning and talking about other general obligation bonds potentially, or whatever we decide to do with things. Before, when we had the certificates of obligation, which I know are not necessarily the same, but for laymen like me, they're city debt. we talked about going for $24 million, even though we forecasted expenses related to it as roughly $21 million. That $3 million was related, I think, towards the premium at that point?
It was in case, well, we have to do a not to exceed amount. So that was approved with a not to exceed amount. So we were going to probably lower that as we got closer to the bond sale, as we knew the cost of the project. So if we knew the project was going to be $21 million, we would have sold only $21 million in proceeds.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or a motion to approve?
On the motion?
No,
I
just a
can't.
motion to approve 2025-23.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2025-23.
A second.
Thank you for catching ordinance. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes at exactly 8 p.m. Sorry, I have to actually sign to go buy all that issue all that money. Okay, moving on to regular agenda item 2, consider resolution 2025-45, certifying the sufficiency of the petition submitted by 5% of the qualified voters, the City of Jersey Village, protesting the issuance of Certificate of Obligation 25A as noticed on May 14th, 2025, and resolution 2025-37 to a public vote in an election to be in accordance with state law. Courtney Rutherford, City Secretary.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, on May 14th, as we said, Council approved Resolution 2537, authorizing the publication of notice of intention to issue the City of Jersey Village Certificate of Obligation Series 2025A. On July 9th, I received a petition in accordance with Local Government Code Section 271.049C, submitted by 5% of the qualified voters of the City of Jersey Village. Once I received the petition, I requested a current list of qualified voters in the city. At that time, there were 5,031 qualified voters. 5% of the qualified voters was 252. After reviewing the petition, there were 293 qualified signatures on the petition. So this item is to accept the certification of the petition, and then to direct staff if you want us to move forward with bringing you information for a bond election in August.
Thank you. I think you noted there at one point we believed that the number was 276, but you said you pulled a list and there were some differences. Can you
Yes,
explain the
so
difference?
actually in reviewing the qualified voters, anybody who is on the list as suspended does not count in your number to make your number of qualified voters, but they still count as a signature on the petition as long as they provided an address within the city.
Received. Thank you for the correction information. Does anybody have any questions or motion?
Just have a real quick clarification of some events. I know prior to the special meeting we had on July 11th, so 10 days ago, Councilmember Hughes put forth an agenda item to effectively withdraw or rescind the COs. He did that prior to July 9th, before we received those. And what we were voting on still was rescinding the COs despite having received the petition. If the petition and one of those was already validated by the time we did the vote, and so they were unless there were changes to be made, they were on their way to to a bond election anyway. So I wanted to clear up what that vote was about, if anyone had any questions. Just as far as I know, until council changes their minds, or if they do, the bond election will occur in November because as a result of these petitions.
Any other discussion or a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve resolution number 2025-45.
Motion and a second.
I'll second.
Motion and a second.
Do you have any comments?
Let me make sure I'm clear on this, because you're saying staff's directed to bring back an ordinance in August calling for a bond election on this particular issue. Is there any latitude in the statute or the requirements, since the CO was for the city campus was up to $24 million? Is the city required to bring back a potential general obligation bond to be voted on for that same amount?
Sorry, Marcus Dees for the work again. You could probably decrease that. We probably want to discuss it with the Attorney General beforehand. The vote, there are two ways you can do this. You can call an election ignoring the certificates of obligation entirely, because you've accepted this petition and you don't have to have an election for the COs. That's one way to do it. You could also have an election for the COs. So you can do either of those options. The dollar amount for either of the, if you ignore the COs, obviously the dollar amount will be whatever you want it to be. If you wanted to lower that amount in an election for the COs, I've seen it done in the past. We just need to pre-clear that with the Attorney General.
Marcus, I want to make sure that we are very clear and everybody understands each other here. This ordinance is directing staff to come back with another ordinance to call an election. It, in and of itself, does not call for an election.
That's correct. You cannot call an election yet. There's a 14-day window in August when you can call the election.
Yes.
But just to be clear, August 18th is the last day we can call that election.
That is
So the ordinance that we will be presenting in August will need to clarify what type of bond we're doing and the amount.
Yes,
And
which
that's
is why
the
we have
direction we need from council.
We have a meeting tomorrow to discuss all of this in detail with everybody here, but you're giving us some options here. And Councilmember Hughes was asking, so this was for COs. Mm-hmm. If we move forward with the COs, it would be your recommendation that we contact the AG's office if we were to change that dollar amount in any way. Our second option would, well, the first option would be let those COs go. They go exactly the way they are. Nothing changes.
Correct.
We put those on the ballot. The second option would be to completely abandon the COs, issue new notices, and go for a general obligation bond at whatever language, amount, however we want to do it, because they're completely unrelated at that point. We are calling a new movement for a new bond amount in a different way.
Correct.
I think that's clear enough. You're welcome to continue.
No, I just want to make sure. So we could either just not pursue the CO at all, pursue the CO via an election of the CO for the $24 million, or if you want to do a different amount, get an AG opinion, or abandon the CO completely and do a general obligation bond for whatever amount. Is that correct?
That is correct. I guess one nuance there. If you have the election on the COs, it will be an election for that notice, right? The language there will be that notice for the city campus and for the water and sewer projects. If we go for a general obligation bond election, separate and apart from the COs, there may be more than one proposition. It'll depend on what the project is. There's a concept called log rolling where you can't mix two dissimilar projects together. You can't put an animal shelter with a court building, right? Because you're mixing the projects up, and you wouldn't want to have voters who wanted the court also be required to vote on the animal shelter. And so there's that concept, which does not apply with respect to the COs. That'll only apply with respect to the general obligation bonds if we wanted that. So does that? Sorry, I'll stop there.
Well, I just got confused.
Okay.
Which my friends would tell me is pretty easily done. But certificates of obligation, we have 2025A and 2025B. What I just thought I heard was you told me that they would both be on the same ballot proposition.
Those would be two separate. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. Those would be two separate propositions.
Okay.
But for the city, the campus, the city hall, that could easily, I could see that being by the AG required to be broken up into multiple propositions.
If we went for GO.
If you went for GO, you don't have to worry about that if we're going for the CO. The CO the proposition will be the language that was in that notice of intent.
Yeah. So
if we was to abandon the COs and then go to GO.
Correct.
Would there be a whole new set of costs that go with that to start that ball rolling?
It'll be about the same whether you have an election's an election, right? And so the cost will be about the same. I mean, it should be exactly the same whether you do it as a CO election or a general obligation bond election.
I mean, it's minimal, but we already put out notices for the COs. Are there the exact same notices either way?
Once you get to the election, yeah.
Okay.
Because we're conducting the CO election under the GO bond statute. We're just using different language.
You have to put the same information out regardless of what the bond type is.
Exactly. So the same notices, the same things you have to post on the website, the same ballot proofs that are going to have to be done by the county. I'm assuming that you're going to use the county and not conduct your own election. So.
Yes, this will be a county election.
Yeah.
The main difference would be if we opted to go with a GO versus ratifying the CO is it does provide a little bit of flexibility on the issuance side, particularly with respect to the 2025 Bs. If you do the CO, you get one shot at issuing. If you do a GO, you can issue in multiple tranches over time.
Just for benefit of the crowd, part of the reason we're directing our questions, this is our lawyer for bond counsel, not the city secretary. The city attorney does not specialize in this area of law. You were... Was that wrong? No. Feel free to correct me. For this meeting, yeah.
We pay Marcus to do this.
Our city attorney actually is extremely skilled, and we are very blessed to have this particular one. You mentioned a moment ago about GOs, and that if we were to move forward, there are a lot of different uses of this property. We are talking about putting public works, city administration, a community-focused building for many different community events. Are we going to have to break all those up and change that, even though they're in the same physical location and they're very tied together?
If we do the COs, no, that'll be one proposition. If we do the GOs, maybe. If it's all the same building, if it's literally connected, then you could probably do it all in one proposition. If it's not literally connected, it's probably going to require multiple propositions.
10 feet apart, but they're not really connected. Some of them have some adjoining roof, but...
Right. So yeah, I would anticipate, and we'd have to run this by the Attorney General. I would anticipate that if you want the general obligation bond route, that complex would be 2 or more propositions.
So why wouldn't we just go with the COs and not go further?
So I think that's absolutely a conversation we should have tomorrow. What I'm trying to get here is all the information, because my understanding too is these two gentlemen will not be there tomorrow. So if you have any questions about GOs and COs or the direction we are going, now is an opportunity to ask those questions.
The complex, if you're asking my opinion, I would go the CO route because it is a complex, right? I mean, it is all interconnected. And if you want the GO route, something could fall out, right? I mean, there's a little bit of voter fatigue. And so if it is one vision, and I would try and convince the AG of this too, if we went to a GO bond election, and try and convince them that it should all really be in one proposition. no promises there. And I would think it would.
No, I understand that. And I understand, like, if people like the appeal of the multiple tranches, I get that. And I understand that there's potential cost savings there, but also non-potential cost savings. But when you separate stuff out like that, I think you end up running the risk of people choosing not to vote for a parking lot, but we have buildings and nowhere to park, as an example. Or we're not going to pay for one building, but we'll pay for the rest, even though they're all connected.
That's assuming that the AG would come back and say that we had to keep them separate, correct?
If you had to split them up, that's right. I mean, I would try and advocate on your behalf to have that in one proposition, but if I'm being completely honest, I don't think it would.
We'll have to go over it tomorrow, but there's also timeline. You won't know that answer until you're already down that
I don't
road.
think we can send it and hope and then change our minds. It's got to be up front.
Anyone else have questions for Marcus?
Just to be clear on the COs, based on your knowledge, and we'll check with the AG, you could go for a lower amount on the COs. Is that any amount? Like, let's say we wanted to take something off, or are you just saying we could go from 24 million to 21 because we only need the 21 proceeds?
You could vary the number. You couldn't vary the projects. If you have an election on the COs, that's already
right.
That is set.
And that's
so. Yeah, you could go. You could take that if you could do it for $15 million, you could move it from 24 to 15.
Sorry, I missed it. For the COs, you said that we can move that number for the COs.
According to Marcus, yes.
Yeah, that 24 million was a not to exceed number.
Yeah.
Correct.
As John mentioned, at the time that we asked for the notice of intent to be approved by you, the resolution, we didn't know what the bond market was going to look like, and so there was a possibility that we would be in a discount market and have to actually sell more premium to generate the bond proceeds. And so that there is some wiggle room built in into that 24 million figure, because once you publish that number, that's it. That's all you get. Yeah.
Which we just saw at the last agenda item. Any more questions for Marcus? Looking for a motion. You're right. We have a motion and a second. It's been a moment.
Who made the second?
Any further discussion?
Because I motioned.
Watson.
Watson did.
So just to be clear, let's reset everything after that Q&A. This receives the petition. It effectively certifies that we've received them and would direct staff to look towards an election, bond election in November.
Yes, this receives the petition. It stops the city from authorizing any certificates of obligation, and it directs staff to bring back an ordinance for an election. But we're having a meeting tomorrow night. You're all welcome to come back tomorrow night, and there'll be more discussion on this. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to regular agenda item 3, consider resolution 2025-46, certifying the sufficiency of the petition submitted by 5% of the qualified voters of the city of Jersey Village protesting issuance of certificates of obligation 2025B as noticed by May 14th, 2025 in resolution 2025-38. Courtney Rutherford, City Secretary.
Yes, Mayor and Council. Again, I received on July 9th a second petition in accordance with Local Government Code Section 271.049C, submitted by 5% of the qualified voters for the Certificate of Obligation 2025B that was noticed on May 14th in Resolution 2025-38. This petition saying we had 5,031 qualified voters requiring 252 signatures. There were 293 qualified signatures on the petition.
Receive. I don't anticipate any further discussion, considering we just had a discussion on a very closely related subject. Looking for a motion.
Before I move, I want to just get some clarity from the City Secretary. How long by state law do you have to review those?
Actually, we could not find anywhere in state law that gave a specific timeline So as quickly as possible, and it had to be done before tonight's meeting.
And you did it as quickly as possible because one was turned over in about a day and the next one was turned over the next business day. So kudos to you for doing the diligence of the citizens. You worked very hard at that. So
thank you.
So with that, I will move to pass regarding water and sewer on certificates of obligation 2025B, resolution 2025-46.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Moving on, regular agenda, item number 4, discuss and take appropriate action regarding a bond election for the municipal pool. At the budget meeting, July 11th, City Council discussed holding a bond election for the pool. The last date to call for that election on November 4th is going to be at the August 18th City Council meeting. Staff would like some direction. My understanding of I'm going to give the synopsis of what we have talked about so far, is that Council agrees that the citizens would like a pool. We have published a request for qualifications that is still currently posted. It has to be posted for 30 days. The city is required to, by state law, to request qualifications for design and professional services. We are unable to negotiate price. It cannot be included in that selection process. Once we select someone to design a pool, we will then have finalized a design. Then it can be cost estimated, or it will eventually go out for a competitive bid process in which we will look for a pool builder at a competitive bid. Then we'll know really the true cost of a pool. One of the problems with that is, as you have heard, we are required to call this election by August 18th, which means that we have to select the design entity, we have to negotiate a price, we have to design that pool, and then we get an idea of what it costs. As we've gone through these presentations, we have all had discussions about the pool. We have all said there is absolutely no way we are building a pool. In 2024, the cost was $4 million. Now we're looking at about $5 million. And my understanding was that council was looking at doing a bond election at the very lowest that we could do, which was $5 million, and we would cash flow the rest. I think the best way to go about this discussion is to move one down. We'll start with Jen and move our way.
My thoughts on this is I think we should consider not bonding for this in November. I think we should consider bonding for this in May. And I'm saying that because we have not had, like you're saying, appropriate time for qualifications for people, for pool design, idea on pricing. We're at this point using old numbers from Councilman Hunsaker on this, which at this point they're old. I think we should wait till May to vote on this because I feel like this is getting rushed, which is, to be honest, the same way the last 2 bonds on this pool felt was a little rushed, is where we got our information. So that's my opinion on it.
Councilmember Rossi.
Why remind us all about why we're pushing for the November instead of a May.
I don't remember having the conversation that it had to be November. I understand the timeline, people wanting a pool quicker, but I also feel like again, I think this is being rushed. I think if we were able to gather the information and able to possibly get some better ideas on pricing, I think we can come up with a realistic number for May. I could be wrong.
Let's keep going for a minute. We'll come back. Watson.
Part of me wishes that we did the last one, delayed it till May, but I think part of the idea is the sooner we have the election means one less swim season that we punt the ball on. I think as far as numbers go, I'm confident that based on the designs we had from Progressive in 2023 with citizen feedback, the designs hold on, and the designs and the costs associated with those designs, right? Per square foot, yada, yada, yada. The designs from Councilman Hunsaker, the various designs that ranged from pool aquatic features from $3 to $4 million, plus the rate of pool/construction inflation. I'm confident that if we went for a bond between $5 to $6 million, and yeah, that's $1 million. That's a lot of money difference. We would have enough money, and then based on Mayor Singleton's assessment, that we could make it up with, or what he said, with general funds. I'm confident we could do that the same. So even if the bond didn't cover enough and we went for the lower end, I think that's a lot more palatable to the voters, who all have told me we want a pool, and we could get it done this November.
Councilmember Hughes.
Yeah, so I'd ask Austin, with the RFQ being out, what's your estimate on a realistic timeline once the responses to the RFQ come in terms of working with the selected designer, sending out the RFP? What sort of time frame realistically do you think you're looking at there?
So in August, council will select the contractor to help us design. We'll negotiate a contract that'll come back to council in September. I would say design would take somewhere between 6 and 9 months. So, if we got started October 1st, you're looking at March, April at best. Could be a little bit later on.
How is the design taking 6 to 9 months?
I'm assuming we would want citizen feedback, citizen input as to what they want to see in the pool. I'm sure there's going to be some other criteria, things that we would want to make sure we're getting plenty of public input on. And I don't know what the workload is going to be. And then we're also talking holidays and that type of thing. So there's a lot going on in those 6 months.
Just seems like an exceptionally slow process. You're talking about a hole in the ground that has water that kids can swim in.
But what kind of hole in the ground do the residents want? That's going to be the biggest thing, is what shape, what types, those types of things.
I know, and we've gone through that dance. The city's gone through that dance with the last pool bond, and, apparently, I don't know how to characterize it, came up with an idea that the voters said, no, I don't like that idea. That's the easiest way to characterize it. But it seems to me that working diligently with a designer, that you could come up with a plan and, get that done in far less than 6 to 9 months.
And I don't know I don't know. It could be. Maybe we could do it in 3. I really don't know. I'm going to give you a longer time frame and over-deliver rather than tell you 3 months and it's going to take 7.
And in terms of the question that the mayor asked with respect to the potential $5 or $6 million bond election in November, what's the upside and the downside of doing a bond in November when you're really just in the infancy or the middle, or if you were terribly good at it towards the end of the design process and ready to go out for bid? Does it make sense to do the bond election in November in that scenario?
About the politics of when council wants to have an election like that on the ballot. I know we've talked about the November ones, we've talked about May. Staff is going to hit whatever timelines we need to hit, and we'll push the consultants to do that as well, but it really comes down to when does the council want that issue on the ballot.
So, sorry for taking more time. If we went with May, we'd have to have a call for a bond in February at the latest, which means design, even if it doesn't take 6 months, would be 4 months. So we still likely wouldn't have a completed design by then.
Unless there's, a design that somebody already has in mind that we're just going to do a 6-lane pool and call it a day. I'm sure that'd be a lot easier to do. But if there's going to be citizen feedback sought or anything like that, then I think that's going to take a little bit more time.
All right, Mr. Roebuck.
You have input about bonds, so you know bonds.
We're going to talk about timing of the project. So if we went out for a November bond election, the earliest we probably have funds is probably mid-January to begin with. So you're adding probably another 2 months because of the holidays before we can sell the bonds and then to close on those bonds. So the funds would not be delivered to probably the earliest January 15th. So add that time in there too. So you're not getting the funds the day after the election. You got to go through the process of selling those bonds. So I don't know if that.
Thank you. I think we're
about 2.5 months.
Aware of that. Okay. One of the reasons I'm not sure where I got it. I thought I got it from our meetings that we should consider this in November was 2 factors. One of those was talking to the petition writer who informally surveyed people, and the large number, we'll go with the large number of people who signed the petition also said they were willing to go forward with a I think he did ask like $4 to $5 million bond on a pool. And so those are all very anecdotal, but when you talk to citizens, many of them are open to the concept. The other is that there's a significant portion of the citizens who will not support the concept of a city community campus in any way without a plan and something moving forward with the pool. And I do not see how you are going to build a pool for less than $5 million based on the 2023 numbers that are aligned with our 2024 numbers, that are aligned with the Wilchester project that people have brought up. They're all very closely aligned with each other. Yes, we don't have a final design. The bond committee had like 8 different designs that they thought of. But if you looked at the very cheapest option, you're still looking at about $4 million in today's costs. Well, $5 million in today's costs. It was $4 million in 2024.
And you're putting together the hole in the ground plus the pump house and all the equipment that go with that.
Yes, throwing out the there's no buildings involved in this.
This is zero extra. This isn't even bathrooms.
Yes.
This is a hole in the ground with water.
Yes.
And I don't think it's going to be $5 billion. I think we're going to still have to float 1 to 2 from the general fund as well. So people not wanting to spend $7 to $9 million on a pool, it's still going to have to happen. It's just whether or not you want to realize how it's going to be spent. And that's, that is what it is. I guess for me, the idea was if we put it off, and when I say put off till May, it's not saying not to do it. It was the idea is if we had more specific numbers, because that was a lot of the feedback I got was that it was too vague. So my assumption was that if we waited till May, that maybe we could have more information, but it sounded like that's not the case either. That was my thought on that, is that the more specific, more transparent that anything to do with a pool or anything at all with money can be, typically that is better digested. That's my thought process.
I think I completely agree with you. I'm not sure how we're going to do it any better when we published the breakdown on the city website in multiple meetings.
It's the same thing as the golf course. People are going to believe what they want to believe, and I'm tired.
One other aspect to consider, and I think the mayor mentioned this, but a couple others, November versus May, because I think it's a valid question that you ask. One is the costs don't go down. And if you delay it 6 months, you're adding 6 months of interest, whether that's 3%, 6%, 20%, whatever. You're still adding to the cost. That means you're going to still continue to get less for more. And I don't want to do that anymore. As a city, it's a disservice to the taxpayers to continue to do that. The other thing, speaking of taxpayers, is a lot of people I've seen on comments on social media and just in conversations is, as Mayor Singleton pointed out, they do not want. The feeling is, why are you putting the city campus ahead of a pool? And I think if you do them at the same time, at least you're making it more palatable for people. For you at least to say as a council, we hear you on both issues, and we're not putting one before the other. We're putting them at the same time.
And I don't disagree with you. I understand that. But to that, just so you know, and so everybody understands where I stand, the fact of the comment of putting the city campus before a pool, I don't consider it the city campus before the pool. I look at it as we're putting people ahead of an accessory. The people that work for the city of Jersey Village deserve to not go to work in a place with mold. They deserve to work in a safe environment. And to me, that always goes ahead of an extra like a pool. And that's my opinion. I understand there's a lot of people that feel that we need to do the pool before we take care of the people. I'll just never agree with that line of thinking.
But to be fair, and you talk about, people deserve to work in a building, there's a difference between the city needs a new city hall versus the city needs an extraordinary city campus. And I think that's the rub here. I don't want anyone working in an unsafe environment. And I know that we've had conversations. I've had conversations with the assistant city manager and exchanges with Austin about what the current condition is. But the condition of City Hall was not a concern. It was not a high priority for 5 to 7 years because nobody did any evaluation. Now we're doing an evaluation, and it's going to come back. Tarragon's going to say, yeah, there's some problems there, and people need to be moved out. And we need to start thinking about solutions that this city can afford. And in my opinion, city campus, doing a full-blown city campus, while somebody can say, well, it's in the comprehensive plan that we want these community spaces, etc., it's just not practical in terms of what the city can afford. Can the city afford to do something to provide a safe space for its workers, a safe work environment? Absolutely. We could take the existing building over where they have the classrooms, etc., where people are there right now, and they could be easily reconfigured for, a couple of $100,000, less than $1 million to get the 25 workers who are in City Hall right now over there in a better environment than where they are, and just on a temporary basis. I mean, we need to take steps. That's why, and we're bringing this into the whole mix of the City Hall, the city campus, and it dawned on me, James, when you mentioned about, well, we're going to be talking tomorrow about the general obligation or the certificates of obligation and the timing, et cetera, that all of this needs to be in the same conversation because there's synergies, good or bad, by having multiple items on the same election or having them on different elections. So
that was actually the point, and I mentioned this at the budget meeting. I have a heart. Everybody's making very good points, but I think some citizens are going to have a hard time with 3 issues on that ballot. Is that what you're referring to? Because I remember making that comment, and I worry about that as well.
Yeah, I'm confident that voters can sift through the issues, but from a standpoint of, does it make sense to put all the issues on one election? Does it make sense to spread it out? There are advantages, as Drew noted, to, let's get the election concerning a pool bond done more quickly. It's all part and parcel of a somewhat complex conversation.
So why don't can we not, I understand August 18th is our deadline for the bond stuff. Can we not table this until tomorrow and make this part of the larger conversation, and then you can still prepare the bond language with leaving out the numerical amount as a possibility for adding the pool onto the bond, right? Can we not do that?
Tomorrow's agenda, I just read, only includes city campus project. So we can only have ancillary conversation to the pool.
Well, there's no way you could talk about the city campus. I'm sorry. There's no way you can talk about the city campus project without having the discussion of these other items. I mean, it's all related.
As long as you can tie it back to your conversation of the city campus.
So the pool doesn't count as city. I mean, do we have a definition of city campus?
Are we talking about putting the pool on the city campus?
Microphone.
No, we're not. And
I think the realities on the ground mean that those issues are so tightly intertwined. But I think that especially when it comes to whether we're going to call an election, I think it's two separate subject matters. It needs to be posted separately on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can post, do we have time for a supplemental agenda?
No.
No.
We already have.
72 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
72. Okay.
And 3 business days after September 1.
Another thought as y'all are talking back and forth to add to this is there's no way, maybe y'all tell me if I'm wrong, I do not see us executing a pool for less than $5 million, and that has been that way since we started talking about it almost 3 years ago. If we wait until May, costs are going to go up, and you're doing all this design process and making all these plans and doing the competitive bid process. What if they put that down? If you vote on it in November, you can just stop. If the voters don't approve $5 million, there's no point to move forward with a pool because there's no way you could ever put one in.
So you're saving $150,000 plus on whatever the design costs?
At least.
I think for me, sometimes it's the optics of it all too. Just putting 3 bond issues in November. But I do agree as far as not rushing it this time.
I understand the 3 items. You also have justification. Our water and wastewater systems are at and beyond the end of their life. You have a need for a city hall, a project that makes sense, a public works facility that you are consolidating all of your city services into one row. Your cost savings, you're paying yourself back almost immediately. You're within a year, you're making a return on your investment in moving public works. You're listening to the citizens who are repeatedly asking for recreational space and community space for JVSO, for the women's group, for the new crafts group, for the painting, for bingo and family nights, and all these things that citizens have asked for over and over and over. And then you need to move the administration offices. The only part of that I've always said is I don't know about the courthouse part of it and the city chambers part of it. And that's the only iffy part. But it needs to be done, and you can't put a courtroom inside the building that exists. We need a pool. Everyone knows we need a pool. Everyone agrees. There's very few people that don't believe we need a pool. There's justification for it.
So I think a lot of the talk, and Simon brought it up and you continued about the city hall, and even though the city hall and city campus and everything involved is great, and I think we need to talk about that tomorrow, and even though they're linked, 3 items on the bond, should we do it? Design fees are 12%. Roughly, is what Councilman Hunsker did in their reports last year. Design, surveys, and permitting. So if we get this and the citizens decide that 5 million, 5.5 million, whatever number we come up with is too much, then design stops, probably 1 month into it. And we save whatever extra funds. Is it optics 3 items on the agenda? With Councilmember Hughes, I think the citizens are wise enough to figure it all out and make individual choices. And if we had to go GO bonds and whatever the Attorney General says, maybe they're able to make 12 choices, whatever the number is. But yeah, I know. So I would encourage my fellow council members to, I would lean towards at least 5 million and put it on the November ballot.
I think if we're going to go with November, that's fine. Like, honestly, that's fine. But I think it needs to be closer I think it needs to be 6.
It occurred to me also, tonight's the decision of, do we move forward with this or do we absolutely not? If you direct, go ahead, sir.
I was just going to say, so initially when it came up, I'm just thinking about, well, it's not on tomorrow's agenda. Well, if the option is we're going to stay here, this issue on this agenda because we have to make it in this meeting, and that's going to go till 3 or 4 in the morning, and I'm not saying this is a criticism of the discussion.
No, you're absolutely right.
Then open meetings allows you to recess the agenda for one day. So this will be brought up tomorrow, and you can discuss this issue tomorrow in conjunction with the other bonds.
Oh, that's a different route than I was thinking.
Can we do that then?
Wait,
the whole agenda, can we jump to can we table this?
It's not tabling it. Well,
yeah, we would just recess the meeting.
Yeah, you don't adjourn the meeting, recess the meeting until the date and time specified tomorrow.
So I was going a little bit different direction. Let me throw that out there, and then we can decide if we do that, because what I was actually suggesting is that there's some work involved in staff moving forward with an election. Absolutely is. But one option is that you tell staff you want to move forward with an election, and in August, you don't. It's on the agenda, and you decide not to do it. And so if you're on the fence, you can move forward with it. But we can also recess the meeting.
And we could change that number in August as well. Because that's just one variable.
Yes.
All the rest of the work would be done.
Yes.
Going back to what you said.
By the way, I didn't mean to say that to kill the conversation. It just came this second. I thought, oh, well, you could recess it. I will say I generally get cautious about using recess, and I specifically get cautious about using it since what's being discussed is direction for the item that's going to come back. You know, I'm comfortable with that, and it's certainly permissible under open meetings.
Would local government codes frown upon us pausing this discussion, going to the next item, and resuming this discussion?
You don't have to discuss till 3 in the morning to get to use.
No, I've got I got some other thoughts.
But if recessing is the way we can do it, because I think Simon, everybody's right. It's so intertwined. Like this is a bigger conversation.
All right, I'm going to move forward.
Is it possible to move on to the last item? And
it is. That's what I'm trying to do. We're going to move forward to regular agenda item J5. Consider resolution 2025-47, authorizing the submission of grant applications to the Texas General Land Office for Disaster Recovery and Reallocation Program. Austin Blees, City Manager.
Mayor and Councilors, back in November, submitted projects to the Texas General Land Office to be considered for their Disaster Recovery Reallocation Program, the DRRP. That's designed to utilize deobligated and unutilized community development block grant funds. We have 3 applications or 3 projects we submitted. Project 1, Castlebridge Wastewater Treatment Plant, constructing the non-potable water station, the sludge draw-off basin, chem feeding, and the on-site lift station. Project 2, West Road Water Plant, replacing the motor control center and the chlorination equipment. And Project 3, the wastewater treatment plant, Castlebridge again, conversion to chlorine gas ejectors, headworks, influent res channel, and blower 3 rehab. All of those projects came straight from the CIP report that is available on our website. We were notified that we'd been accepted to submit applications for all 3 projects. We do have to have a cost share. So for the 3 projects, the grant total would be just over $4.5 million, and the city share would be $767,000 for total project cost of $5.2 million, or almost $5.3 million. So it should be noted these costs do include engineering fees and do account for some inflationary costs as well. These projects were selected over others because we need to show a benefit to a low to moderate income areas, as the Castle Bridge wastewater treatment plant and the West Road water plant primarily serve areas along the west side of Jones. Those areas are going to be a lot easier to do LMI benefits there. So if the bids for these projects come in lower and we have grant funds left over, we may be able to add additional items to the scope of work, but there will be some things to be seen there. All work with this would have to be done within 2 years of the grant contracts being signed. We've spoken with the engineering firm we've used about potentially starting the design work for these items sooner. If we pay for the engineering fees on our own, that will be allowing the 100% of the grant funds to be used for construction. We could get to the construction more quickly under that scenario. The 2-year time window is relatively tight for some of these things. I have to say, as we'll do with every grant application, these are not a guarantee. We can't count on this money. If we get it, that would be awesome, but there's a chance that we don't. Grant applications are due August 20th. Final awards, I'm going to guess, are not going to be made until sometime in mid-2026, just because we submitted these projects back in November. We were told we'd hear back in February 25, and we just heard in June. So some of the timelines that they put out there are not always right. So CDBG funding has some unique requirements for grant administrations. I'm not really comfortable to do that in-house, so we'd look for outside people to do that as well. So this tonight will be recommending approval of Resolution 2025-47.
Question for you on the outsourced administrative work. Any idea what the fee is on that?
Typically, it's 5% of the total project cost.
Project or, I guess is that construction costs? Just
project cost.
Percent of the 5.78 or 5.278?
Yep. Yeah, that's why when we can, I like to do those in-house, and we can save the city a lot of money. But in CDBG, it's just a little more unique.
So $260K, effectively.
$260K, yeah. We've saved that roughly that amount with some other grants we've done in-house.
But would that be covered by grant funding?
Yeah, that would. Admin fees can be a part of that.
And the other question I have, these projects, are they all within the first 2 or 3 years of the water sewer CIP?
Correct. These projects, if we don't get grant funding, would be a part of what we would do already under the COs if the voters were to approve those in November.
And if the voters were to approve the COs and we did receive the grants, we could pay for the city's share through the CO proceeds, potentially?
Correct, yep. And if we don't get the grants, we still have to come up, or if the COs don't get approved and we get the grants, we still have to come up with the $767,000.
But we would have to come up with all of the money regardless, because these are projects that have to be done, correct?
Correct.
I would much prefer to at least take a gamble on a large portion of it being paid for by someone else.
I don't see a compelling reason why we wouldn't pursue this.
No.
Then do you want to make a motion?
I will move happily that we approve Resolution 2025-47.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Moving on to item K, Mayor and Councilor comments. Councilmember Hughes. No comments. Councilmember Wasson.
I think we beat the Texas legislation session to death during the city manager report, but I would encourage everyone to pay attention to the special session, this one and the next one that follows and the one that might follow that. Again, please review the budget, even if it's just the front pages of every department and fund. I think it's, one, enlightening, and two, may prompt you to ask questions and feedback, and we are all here to serve you and get those answers and receive that feedback. And I look forward to tomorrow night. So come by if you can.
Councilmember Rossi.
I'll second that. Congratulations to Detective Jonathan Hall for the Police Department Employee Award. And thank you to the Fire Department and Police Department for all your hard work. There is a paint and sip. I'm guessing that's sipping wine. Oh, I don't know, that's kind of cool. Friday at the Convention Center, $40 per person. That's all I got.
Councilmember McCray.
I'm good. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody, for came out tonight. July is always fun with all the budget stuff. I appreciate it. I do recommend that you go review the budget and bring comments to council, specifically services that you do not want to give up, because we will get more information soon on the tax rate and have to discuss what we're going to set the tax rate, what budget items are going to remain. That is all that I have. I'm not going to say anything further. We are going to recess this meeting. This meeting will reconvene tomorrow, July 22nd at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. That's it.